December 29th today. Snow all melted again. It's around +5 or 6. And I learned something from Nigel the other day from the Bonsai Zone when he was pruning his Norway Maple. And that's that I shouldn't prune maples really in the spring or late winter, right before they start growing, flushing out. I should cut them probably about now instead, so that they can have some time to heal. Oops. Some time to heal up before, next spring. So when they start pushing sap through it again, it won't bleed too much. So this is a Norway maple. Most of my maples are Norways, but this is probably the thicker one right now, the one I should definitely worry about cutting at this time of year. The rest of them, this is either a red or silver maple, I think. That one, and then this one back here. They're pretty thin still. This one's also a maple. It's got some cool movement. I'm gonna cut it way back. So, I don't know. They're still pretty thin though. I don't know if that would bleed too much if I cut it in the late winter, early spring. If you guys know anything about that, or Nigel, if you're watching, maybe you can let me know. These ones are also Norway maples. They've got some pretty cool character to them. I'll chop them way back too, so I probably should do them now also. All of the 2-year-old seedlings in there are Norway maples. They're doing pretty well. And then the big one, I'm pretty sure, actually I think this one ended up being my silver maple, and then one of the smaller ones was a sugar maple, or maybe this big one's a sugar maple. Nah, I'm sure it's probably not. Sorry, it's not really focusing that well there. So I don't think I'm really gonna do any pruning to this. It hasn't grown super strongly since I got it. It was one of the first trees I collected, I think. It's hanging on, but it's not doing too great. It's got a little bit of interesting movement at the base here. It kind of curls up, twists up, then it grows really straight. I was thinking of growing it as like a formal upright or maybe an informal upright, but probably once it starts growing really strongly, I'll probably cut it back to here or something and let this go as the leader, maybe even farther back, I don't know. But for now, I'm not gonna cut that at all. I'm gonna repot all of these, everything in there, into good soil and their own pots. I haven't touched this soil in years. It's, a lot of just organic stuff and some perlite I threw in there. I didn't really mix my soils very well back then, or really know what I was doing. I've only been doing this a couple years, so anyways, I think I might do some chopping on a few of these maples anyways. Okay, so these are all my smaller maples in pots. I've got this Japanese maple here. These leaves are still hanging on. I should probably just take those off, but I'm not gonna prune that right now. I'm going to wait until the right moment, just before the new growth starts coming out. I'm probably gonna take it off right here and let those 3 small shoots grow up. I'm gonna cut this back eventually, but that's probably skinny enough to leave it and cut it in the spring. This one, I'm not gonna cut it all. It was really weak this year, not much happened, so I'm gonna let that one just go on. This one is pretty interesting. This is a new kind of feature here. Interesting kind of split in the bark there. Got lots of roots coming out of this interesting trunk here. It was basically a cutting that, I think it was just a broken twig that ended up in the ground, in the sand, and it just grew out of a bud right here. Interesting movement. I'm gonna cut it way back to here eventually, but again, it's really skinny, so it won't bleed that much, so I'll do that in the spring. Same goes for this one. Got some cool movement at the bottom. Gonna cut it way back here in the spring. This one, pretty sure is a Norway maple. These are all different kinds of maples, but I think this is also a Norway. This is a tiny little something, but it's not very strong. It's got kind of a really wide base at the bottom, but not much has happened with that one. This, you know, I thought was a Norway, but it might actually be something else. The buds and the tips are green, but these, yeah, the Norways have red buds, so this is something different, but I need to do some pruning on it. So maybe now's the right time, because it's a fairly thick trunk, and actually I'm gonna do some major pruning. It's got some really cool movement this way, and then I thought maybe I can keep this thicker branch, but then, you know, it goes up really straight here, and neither of these buds are facing in the direction I want, which is to grow it back that way. So I think I'm just going to cut off this branch here. I'll allow this to grow, and I'll allow this kind of small twisting branch to grow up as the leader, and then I'll cut off these two. So cutting off more than half the tree really. So I'm not sure if this time of year is the best time to do that, or if I should wait till the spring. I'll think about that, but for right now anyways, this is a small little Norway forest, Norway maple forest, but there's two really small ones that aren't really growing in proportion to the others. So I think I'll probably cut back the three big ones right now, leave the two small ones to keep growing. Maybe I'll chop off these two little side branches. Don't really need them, that's pretty low for a forest tree, although maybe I'll leave it, give it some more interesting movement, as you know, the tree on the outside, I'll probably leave it in the same kind of alignment orientation. And then I showed all these before. I'll do a bit of pruning on some of those maybe. Maybe those two, and definitely this big one over here. So I'm not doing anything to those ones on the left. Just to this little mini forest here. These are Norway maples, grown from seed from the large tree in front of the house here. So I've got this front one here. There's some cool movement up to here and really short internodes to here. And then there's a sudden long one. So I'm gonna chop that off right there. This one, a little bit of interesting movement. fairly short internodes. There's a small little branch that's coming out here already. So no, I'm gonna keep the next node as well, and then there's a really long internode here, so I'll chop it there. The back one here, there's a little bit less movement, but the trunk's really thick at the bottom. A little bit of branching starting here, and then a long internode up here between this one and this one, so that's where it'll go back to. And that'll be it for now for these ones. I'm just gonna pop these into the soil and see what happens with them. So that's that for my little Norway maple forest planting. That's really only about a year old, one growing season old, less than a year. Next I'll move on to these ones. I don't know what that ticking noise is, kind of annoying. Anyways, got my two large Norway maples here. Showed the movement in the trunks earlier, but you can see that one is pretty thick in the ground. Then it comes out and twists up to here where it splits and goes all the way up, and then this one twists out of the ground and comes back to the left, but then grows really straight all the way to this big division here where there's 4 growing out, 5 including the leader. So I'm gonna cut that one probably way back closer to that twist, and this one I think is okay if it starts branching off up here, so here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna take the big one and I don't really want this one to come back here as the leader. I'm just gonna start maybe growing some kind of, broom style canopy from here. So I'll cut it back to where there's 2 branches coming out, and so there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 branches coming out right now. This one's got 3 coming out of one spot, but that's okay for now. I want this to grow a little bit thicker before I do any pruning to it. Hopefully this one will take a lot of the strength at the start of next growing season and really take off. And then this one, I think it's got really tight internodes until here, and then kind of a longer one. So that's where I'll take it off to. Probably can't even see that actually. So I took it off way down there. You can see the internodes, how tight they are, and how far away the next one would have been before I cut it off, rather. It was like that before. And this one looks like that. onto these ones next. So I forgot to show it, but I put the 2 cuttings in here just because why not? I'm not really expecting any of the cuttings I plant today to survive through the winter, but you never know. We'll see what happens. I think actually I just decided to leave all these. Now, most of them have died back naturally at the tips. You can see where some of them have been dead all season and they've just grown these little side shoots, which is pretty cool. Some of them are pretty nice lower down, so I think I'm just gonna leave these as is. Maybe I'll even plant them in a forest type later. So I don't know, there's one big one back there with some really big roots. I was thinking about doing something about right now, but I think I can just wait until repotting season. This one and this one are the only ones that are still growing at the original growing tips. All the rest of them died back and branched off. This one even branched off here, even though the main leader's still going. So yeah, lots of interesting branching going on in these smaller ones. And then this big one, you know, isn't too strong yet, so definitely won't be doing any pruning on it just yet. Did some pruning when I first got it, but that was way back when I knew absolutely nothing. You can see that trunk on it is actually kind of interesting. Anyways, I'm just gonna leave all these alone, deal with them in the spring. So next thing I'm gonna do, you can see this big Norway maple has some massive roots coming off of it, but it's kind of wobbly in the soil a little bit. I was thinking about chopping this root back to here because it's growing really thick and it's got a little side root shooting off there. Might do that now, might do it in the spring, but for now anyways, I don't want this as the leader. I want to grow a big tree here, but I want this to loop back around up that way. So I'm just going to do a big chop. And it's got a bud coming off here. I might leave that just to keep a little bit of strength in the junction there. Maybe a branch growing there in the spring would allow it to heal faster. You know, keeping this for dieback, so hopefully it'll, you know, die back naturally and then I can clean it up next year. I'm not gonna touch the terminal bud up here. I'm just gonna let this branch thicken up a little bit more, and then I'll chop it back to probably here, give it a little bit of taper, allow it to grow on back this way somewhere. So that's it for now on that one. And that's actually it for all my maples. There's everything else. The buds on the spruce tree here are just huge and ready to burst open next spring. Gonna get a lot of growth. I'll probably end up limiting the growth of the top portion and hopefully force some back budding down this way. There is a little bit of back budding already, a few small buds here and there. Yeah, there's even one up in the junction over there. Anyways, that's it for today on all the maples. Looking forward to seeing how they all grow on this year. I'll do some repotting. This one I think definitely needs repotting. You can see all the roots there. It's kind of pushing the pot out. And I definitely need to prune this one up. I think the only thing that will remain on this tree is going to be this little shoot. It'll be kind of grow up in this like corkscrew kind of twisting effect. Hopefully that'll be kind of interesting. It's already got a kind of thick base on it, and then it tapers down really thin right here. Hopefully I can, you know, get this tree looking mature and cool. I think, I'm not exactly sure which type of maple it is, so I'm just gonna leave it alone for now. It probably won't bleed that much when I prune it in the spring, so that's it for now. Happy holidays and Happy New Year to everyone. It's almost 2022. Will be in a couple days now for me anyways, so here's hoping next year is a better one for everyone. Cheers.